Jason Whitlock, Amber Cox has blocked me on this app. What are we doing? I mean, what are we doing? This league can handle no criticism. Christie Sides. Literally trolling the Indiana Fever. That's the Caitlin Clark Stan account that put this up, that caught this. Christie Sides trolling the Indiana Fever as they were getting their brains kicked in last night.
We need to have a very serious conversation about the absolute disaster that is currently unfolding with the Indiana Fever. If you have been paying attention to the WNBA over the last 48 hours, you already know that the basketball world is completely melting down. The Indiana Fever, the team with the biggest spotlight in the entire history of women's basketball, the team that houses a generational talent in Caitlin Clark, just suffered a humiliating, catastrophic blowout loss. And they did not just lose to any championship contender. They lost to the Portland Fire. Let that sink in for a moment. An expansion team, a brand new franchise that was just put together. This new team comes out and absolutely destroys the Indiana Fever on the court, exposing every single flaw, every single terrible coaching decision, and every single ounce of dysfunction hiding within that organization. The fallout from this game is unlike anything we have seen before. Fans are furious. Analysts are furious. But what is even more shocking is how the Indiana Fever's management and their coaching staff are handling the criticism. Spoiler alert, they are handling it terribly. In fact, they are completely melting down under the pressure. Let us start with the most embarrassing piece of this entire puzzle. The front office. When your team is performing terribly, when your fans are demanding answers, the absolute worst thing you can do as an executive is to bury your head in the sand and block out the media. But that is exactly what Amber Cox, the chief operating officer and general manager of the Indiana Fever, decided to do. She literally took to social media and blocked Jason Whitlock. Yes, you heard that right. The GM of a major professional sports franchise blocked a highly critical veteran journalist because the heat was getting too hot. Let us put some respect on Jason Whitlock's name for a second and look at his resume. We are talking about a man who has been in the sports journalism industry for 30 years. He has hosted Pardon the Interruption on ESPN. He was a major voice on Speak for Yourself with Colin Cowherd. He wrote for the Kansas City Star. He worked for the Sporting News. He has filled in for Jim Rome on The Jim Rome Show. Whitlock is a bona fide, seasoned journalist who does not pull any punches. Whether you agree with his takes or not, he is a legitimate media figure who analyzes the game and calls out garbage when he sees it. And right now, the Indiana Fever organization is producing pure garbage. So Whitlock does his job. He criticizes them. He points out the massive structural failures of the team. And how does Amber Cox respond? She hits the block button. This is a total and complete joke. It proves exactly what critics have been saying for months. This league, and specifically this front office, cannot handle any level of criticism. When you have the biggest spotlight in the sports world shining on your franchise because of Caitlin Clark, you have to operate with a thick skin. You have to be professional. Blocking journalists on an app because they call out your terrible management is petty, unprofessional. And frankly, it shows that the Indiana Fever front office is terrified of accountability. They want the massive ratings, they want the sold-out arenas, they want the massive influx of cash that comes with having Caitlin Clark on their roster. But they do not want to answer hard questions when they fail to put a competent team around her. The sheer arrogance to think you can silence a 30-year veteran of sports media by blocking him shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how professional sports work. You cannot hide from the terrible product you are putting on the floor. And speaking of that terrible product, we have to talk about Stephanie White and the absolute nightmare that is her coaching strategy. After the blowout loss to the Portland Fire, the excuses started rolling in, but the actual gameplay tape does not lie. The Indiana Fever are currently running a defensive scheme that makes absolutely zero sense for the personnel they have. During the broadcast, it was highlighted that the Fever are a team that switches the most defensively in the entire league. They want to switch 1 through 5. Do you understand what that means in practical basketball terms? It means you intentionally create situations where a small guard ends up guarding a power forward or a center in the paint. It means opposing teams can easily exploit mismatches all night long. Why on earth would you design a defensive system that actively puts your smallest players in the paint against giants? The broadcast even pointed this out, showing instances where guards were trapped in the paint, getting bullied and taken advantage of because of this ridiculous switch-everything philosophy. In what world do you live in where you think having a guard play the 4 or the 5 is a sustainable strategy? Sure, in chaos, a mismatch happens by accident. But to plan your entire defense around it, that is coaching malpractice. But the coaching disaster does not end with defensive switching. It gets worse when you look at how Stephanie White is managing her rotations, and specifically, how she is treating the point guard position. Let us look at Raven Johnson. Now, nobody is out here trying to blindly hate on Raven Johnson. She has shown promise, and she brings defensive energy. But we need to look at the reality of the situation and the narrative Stephanie White is trying to push. Prior to the game, Stephanie White made comments to the broadcast praising Raven Johnson, saying she was coming off her best game, playing with aggression, getting into the paint, and playing physical. But the most telling quote from Stephanie White was when she said that when Raven Johnson is in the game, the pace of the team picks up. She explicitly stated, "We play faster when she is the one." Let that sink in. Stephanie White is openly telling the media that the team plays faster and better with Raven Johnson running the point, instead of Caitlin Clark. This is an insane narrative to push when you look at the actual results on the floor. Raven Johnson got 10 minutes of playing time, could not score the basketball, and was a non-factor offensively. Yet Stephanie White is trying to convince everyone that the base of the offense is somehow elevated when she is running the show. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Stephanie White firmly believes this team is better without Caitlin Clark dominating the ball. She wants to run her own system. She wants to prioritize her own rotational players, and she is actively minimizing the impact of the greatest offensive engine in women's basketball history. People are starting to wake up to this. They are seeing that the substitutions make no sense. The Fever fans are noticing that players are being put in positions to fail, while the coach tries to justify it with empty praise for a system that clearly is not working. The blowout against Portland was a disaster all the way around, and the blame falls squarely on the shoulders of the coaching staff. And while all of this misery was happening on the court, while the Fever were getting their brains kicked in by an expansion team, while the front office was having a meltdown and blocking journalists, something absolutely hilarious was happening on social media. Christie Sides, the former head coach of the Indiana Fever, the woman who was fired to make room for Stephanie White, was literally trolling the franchise in real time. For those who do not remember, let us take a quick trip down memory lane. Last year, during Caitlin Clark's rookie season, the Fever started out with a horrible 1-9 record. The pressure was immense. Everyone was calling for Christie Sides to be fired. But what happened? After the Olympic break, Christie Sides handed the keys to the offense completely over to Caitlin Clark. She finally let CC run wild, and the Fever went on an absolute rampage. They were kicking down doors, taking names, and playing some of the most electric basketball in the league. They made the playoffs. But what was her reward? The front office fired her anyway. They brought in Stephanie White because they thought they could do better. So yesterday, as the Fever are trailing by 20 Looking lost and broken against the Portland fire, Christie Sides decides to drop a bomb on social media. She posts a picture of herself out on a beautiful, sunny golf course, completely relaxed, away from the stress of the WNBA. And her caption? Hard to beat days like this. God bless you. It was a masterclass in passive-aggressive trolling. Christie Sides is fully aware of what is happening. She knows her former team is failing miserably without her. She knows Stephanie White is struggling to figure out a rotation that Christie had already solved by simply letting Caitlin Clark be the superstar she is. A massive Caitlin Clark fan account caught the tweet immediately, and the internet went wild. Christie Sides was essentially sitting back, enjoying a beautiful day of golf, watching the Indiana Fever burn to the ground on national television. It is the ultimate karma. You fire the coach who finally figured out how to win with your superstar. You bring in a new coach who tries to reinvent the wheel, and now you are losing to expansion teams. You literally cannot write a better script for poetic justice. But the real victims in all of this are not the coaches or the media. The real victims are the fans, and we are starting to see a massive shift in fan behavior that should absolutely terrify the WNBA and the Indiana Fever organization. Fans are tapping out. They are throwing in the towel. If you look across social media right now, specifically on the platforms of major Caitlin Clark supporters, the sentiment has completely shifted from hope to sheer apathy. Take Farkas Cast, for example, a huge, dedicated fan who has been defending and supporting this team relentlessly. After the blowout, he posted a message that echoes the feelings of thousands of viewers. He said he feels quite free today because his summer schedule is totally freed up. He expressed his love for Caitlin Clark, but explicitly stated he is looking away from the car crash. He said the Indiana Fever have no clue how to navigate the league, the referees, or the aggressive defensive schemes. He said he pities CC because he knows how competitive she is, but he cannot even bring himself to watch the games anymore. He is not even going to watch the big, highly anticipated rematches. He might catch a highlight, but that is it. He ended his post by saying he cannot wait to see Caitlin Clark on another team. This is a massive red flag. The lifeblood of this current WNBA boom is the casual fan and the dedicated Caitlin Clark stan who tuned in to see greatness. But the Indiana Fever are providing a product that is so frustrating, so poorly managed, and so incompetently coached that these die-hard fans are choosing to spend their summer doing literally anything else. I've received messages from viewers saying the exact same thing. They are telling me, hey, I will keep watching your videos to keep up with the drama. I will listen to the commentary, but I am absolutely not turning on my television to watch the Indiana Fever play a full basketball game anymore. They are choosing to consume the drama through recaps and commentary channels rather than giving the WNBA their viewership. This is exactly why we are seeing rumblings about television ratings not hitting the projected marks. The bottom is falling out. The league and the Fever organization thought they could just put Caitlin Clark on the floor, surround her with a terrible system, run awful defensive schemes, treat the media like garbage, and still reap the financial rewards. They thought the fans would just blindly consume whatever slop they put on the screen. But the fans are smarter than that. They recognize bad basketball. They recognize when a generational talent is being suffocated by a coach who thinks she knows better. Stephanie White wants to run a switch-heavy defense that gets her players crushed in the paint. She wants to pretend the offense is faster and better when the ball is taken out of CC's hands. Amber Cox wants to block veteran journalists who dare to point out these glaring flaws. And meanwhile, the fans are walking out the door. The arrogance of the Indiana Fever front office is truly astounding. They were handed a golden ticket. They were handed the most marketable, exciting, and transcendent player women's basketball has ever seen. All they had to do was build a competent roster, hire a coach who understands modern offensive spacing, and act like professionals in the front office. Instead, they have created a toxic, dysfunctional environment where the general manager is fighting with reporters on social media, and the coach is desperately trying to prove her system is bigger than her superstar. And sitting in the background, laughing at all of it, is Christie Sides, hitting a golf ball down the fairway, knowing exactly what kind of animal she woke up last season, and watching the current regime completely fail to tame it. The Indiana Fever have a massive problem on their hands. If they do not fix this immediately, if they do not hold Stephanie White accountable for these ridiculous rotations, and if the front office does not stop acting like emotional teenagers on social media, they are going to permanently alienate the fan base that saved their franchise. You cannot survive in professional sports by hating your own fans, ignoring the media, and actively sabotaging your best player. The clock is ticking, the fans have already started changing the channel, and the entire league is going to suffer if the Indiana Fever do not wake up and realize the massive mistake they are making. The dark side of this fandom is growing. People are unsubscribing from the WNBA product, and they are moving strictly to the drama and the fallout. It is a disaster, it is a joke, and it is entirely their own fault.